And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we are talking about the alternate jersey that the Washington Commanders are going to be wearing next season. We're also going to be doing a Terry McLaurin contract update, as we're going to be talking about what NFL insider James Palmer had to say about Terry McLaurin and his current contract situation. And so before we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting. Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, Jalen Lane, and many others for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we are talking about the Commanders bringing back a classic uniform here. And so if you've not got a chance to see this or read about this, you can head over to ESPN.com. And this is going to share some details here about the Commanders' alternate uniform that they're going to wear. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring up the tweet from the team. And this is also in that article, so you can take a look at what the uniforms are going to look like here next season. But within this article on ESPN.com, it talks about how the Washington Commanders wore these uniforms in 3 Super Bowls. And so the 83, 87, and the 91 season there. And so we're going to be seeing this here in this upcoming season. And there's 3 times that the Washington Commanders are slated to wear these jerseys here. So it looks like that when they play the Seattle Seahawks on November the 2nd, that's going to be a game. Then you have the Denver Broncos on November the 30th. That is going to be a game in which the Washington Commanders would wear these alternate jerseys. And then the day that they play the Dallas Cowboys, which is going to be Christmas Day, they'll be wearing the alternate jersey there. And so I just love the fact that the Washington Commanders are going to go back to this jersey. This is a jersey in which I sometimes wear here in the post game. And in fact, I'm wearing the Doug Williams jersey here. And so it does mention Doug Williams here, and it talks about what he did there in Super Bowl 22 against the Denver Broncos, in which Washington went ahead and put up the quarter here. And so I love the fact that they do mention that. But another thing that they talk about here is that the Washington Commanders could make this their permanent jersey. Now, it does say that one team source said last week that Washington hasn't decided if it will make these its permanent jersey at some point in the future. They would have to submit a permanent thing to the league for approval in advance if they want to do this. And so they would have to let the league know a year in advance if they wanted to make that jersey swap. And so maybe something that we see for the long term. But again, I just love the fact that this ties into the history. And I love the fact that it ties into the Super Bowls that this team has won. And so hopefully we get some luck by switching to this jersey. Hopefully we are talking about another Super Bowl. I would love to see that. But once again, this is what the jersey is going to look like. This is what they look like back in the day. And once again, wearing the Doug Williams jersey here right now. And so definitely love it. Just me personally, as a fan, I think that one of the alternate jerseys that I would like to see come back here is going to be this one. I like this as a jersey that I would like to see the Washington Commanders rock at some point as an alternate jersey. And so hopefully the Commanders end up bringing this back, I think, at some point in time. But just definitely personally one of the jerseys that I like. Throwing up Stephen Davis here. He was tough for us back in the day, but nice look there. But I love the jersey that we're going to see here 3 times. And once again, hoping that we get some Super Bowl luck with that. And so you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking about that alternate jersey. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and jump into the Terry McLaurin update. And within this, you're going to see 2 different opinions in this article. And so one we've already talked about with Jeremy Fowler and what he had to say about the Terry McLaurin and the contract situation. Remember, I was talking about why, he's thinking that the Commanders could be avoiding the sophomore slump here, especially with Jaden Daniels, stepping up here in year 2. And then also, too, talking about, hey, they're not close to a deal. And so also, too, with James Palmer, who you can see what he had to say, and also, too, it gives you a link to his YouTube show as well. And so I believe he does a Bleacher Report live. And within this, he's talking about several different topics. And so he talks about TJ Watt, and then he goes into Terry McLaurin. He's talking about Travis Hunter as well. And so he's just really sharing some insight here from around the league. It's a league, excuse me. So it's this NFL Insider Notebook is what it is in the title. And so at the 9:10 mark, that's where you're going to be able to see him talk about Terry McLaurin. And so I'm paraphrasing what he had to say. I think that what he's saying here, it definitely feels like that there's a positive outlook here. But it does also share the same thing that we've been talking about as far as just the Commanders and Terry McLaurin. It seems like that they're not close as far as, a new contract at this point. But, the first thing that he talks about is that Terry McLaurin is set to make the $15.5 million base this year and a $25.5 million cap hit. And then he talks about Dan Quinn staying in contact with Terry McLaurin, which I think is a very good point to make here because, yes, they may be distant on a deal, but definitely they've been in contact with Terry McLaurin. And so, that just lets you know that, look, they're still on the same page there, even though the contract hasn't, come to fruition just yet with a contract extension. And so I think that is very important, especially when we get to tying it up at the end here. But the next thing that he talks about here is just, he talks about like comparable numbers, and he talks about that Terry McLaurin is not looking to reset the market and understands, what Jamar Chase got and everything else. But he does bring up the fact that there's 7 players making 30 million or more. And he talks about T. Higgins. And so when you look at T. Higgins, he's making about $28 million on a 4-year, $150 million contract. And he is definitely a wide receiver too. And when you look at the production for Terry McLaurin, I think that certainly you see a player that in a lot of ways, in my opinion, I think he's more productive than T. Higgins, and especially with his availability as well. And so, he brings up the point that, hey, T. Higgins is getting the 28 million. And then he talks about, would other teams be interested? And he says, absolutely, because Terry McLaurin is a player that checks all the boxes, especially when you start with the performance and, just going a little bit more into the performance, the contested catches, getting open, being a wide receiver that is friendly to the quarterback, just understanding where and when to be at a certain place on the field. Like, he checks everything, the toughness for you. And so the performance, without a question. And then he talks about the other stuff, which is equally as important when you're talking about the locker room guy that Terry McLaurin is and the teammate that he is. I mean, that is exactly what I've been talking about, when it comes down to the standards of the Washington Commanders and what it means to be a Commander. And so he definitely is the guy that you look to Terry McLaurin, and just like the C is there on his chest. I mean, this guy is the captain of the team, and definitely when you're talking about a Commander, it's Terry McLaurin. And so the next thing he talks about is that Washington understands all of that. They understand what he brings, from a performance standpoint, locker room guy, teammate, and everything else. And then he goes into the fact that Terry McLaurin is super important to the Washington Commanders, and especially Jaden Daniels, because he was important for Jaden Daniels to take that step as a year 1 quarterback and really help to develop him. And just talking about like how Terry McLaurin helps the chemistry there. And I think that is super important, because when you hear Adam Peters, you hear Dan Quinn, and you really hear the players talk, they talk about it just really being a tight team. And I can imagine that the chemistry is right there when you're talking about this. And I think that when you're looking at Terry McLaurin, you're looking at him being a chemistry type of player. And also, too, he's producing. It's a player that you definitely want to get back into your building. And make no mistake about it, I'm right there with this NFL insider, James Palmer, in the sense that I think that he is going to be definitely important for Jaden Daniels going into year 2. In fact, I think that Terry McLaurin needs to be out there to really make sure that Jaden Daniels doesn't get into a sophomore slump, which I don't think is going to happen. And when I think when you look at the totality of things and you just look at what the Washington Commanders have done offensively, with bringing in Laramie Tunsil, also going out there and getting Josh Connolly Jr. and the free agents that you also brought in for the offensive line. You went out and you got your Corey Krosky married. You bring a wide receiver in Jalen Lane. You still have, you bring Debo Samuel over. You still have Luke McCaffrey, who's entering year 2, and we keep hearing great things about that. You also have Noah Brown and Zach Ertz that are entering into year 2 as well. And year 2 in the sense with Jaden Daniels. Yes, I get that they're veteran players, but still, they showed some real upside in year 1. And then I think that with Luke McCaffrey, he's going to definitely step up here in his second year in the NFL. And so I think that one of the major keys to this offense is Terry McLaurin. And it just makes no sense to upgrade the offense and not bring back a key contributor for your football team. And just as far as what he means to the franchise, like, this is a player that has not missed a game in 4 seasons. You're looking at a player that's had 5 straight 1,000-yard campaigns. I get the fact that he's going to be 30 in September, but I think that he still has plenty of left in the tank. And I think that there's a way in which you can structure a deal in which it makes sense to be on the same timeline as Jaden Daniels, because remember, the Washington Commanders still really are not paying Jaden Daniels tons of money here yet. So I think that you have to go ahead and maximize that window with Jaden Daniels. And so I think that this is something that the Washington Commanders definitely should get done. And he does mention the fact that he believes a deal will get done. And he thinks that he doesn't think that there's going to be a trade. He also says that it's possible. I'm right there with him there. I mean, anything is possible. But I do think that Adam Peters and this franchise would find a way to get a deal done. And I think that he's super important for the chemistry for this team offensively, and then also, too, for that development that would need to continue with Jaden Daniels here. And so you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking about this most recent update around Terry McLaurin. Then also, too, let me know what you guys are thinking with the alternate jerseys that the Washington Commanders are going to be wearing. Once again, I love the fact that we are tying in the Super Bowls here with this current team. And so I love it. I love the fact that they mentioned the Doug Williamson reference is mentioned in the ESPN article here. Like I said, I like to wear that generally sometimes on the post games. And so I'd love to see this jersey back. And another just alternate jersey that I would like to see at some point in time, I'd love to see them bring this one back. So we'll see what happens. But you guys let me know in the comments what you're thinking about the jersey, and then also too about Terry McLaurin and his current contract update there. So as we always say, go Commanders, and I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.